So first we're going to go into the login page. This is the home page. Now we're going to go to the login. Now we want to first log in as a client. Type in the username and the password. So next we're into the actual main client page, the client login page. So we want to put in an input a service request. So we hit the link up here. Now we have a drop down box where we can change from the service requests or to the unresolved requests and history. We want to use the service request, so we can type in the service request here, put in the client ID, the due date, the technician ID, and then click the input service request button. So if we want to see the service request page, which we are on, we click this and all the service request history will come down. And if we want the unresolved request, we click the unresolved request page and it'll move on to the unresolved request or service request page where you can see the different services. So next we want to log in as the receptionist. Similar to the client, we type in the username and the password and we get it straight into the receptionist page where we want to, we'll say, input another service request. So we input service request, which brings us on to the drop down box. If we want to move to the enter new client, we hit the enter new client key, and if we want to drop down, or if we want to go into the check inventory, we drop down the box and hit the check inventory page. So for a service request, we just, same as the client, we just type in all the details that are required, input the service request, and it will go into the table below. So now we moved on to the enter client by hitting it from the drop down box. So we enter the client name, the ID number, the address, the email, phone number, and hit submit, and a new client is entered into the system by the reception list. Next then we move on to the check and inventory. So we can actually, by hitting the drop down box again, we click the check inventory, we can search for some software or hardware. We can also search for, we can navigate between software and hardware to choose which one we're looking for. So now we want to log in as the technician, similar to the client and the receptionist. We type in the username and the password and we're good to go. We hit the input service request because so once we hit the service request, then in the technician login, it moves on to the service request page. So the server, we can look at here in the drop down box, we can hit the server request history, unresolved service requests, input service requests, or insert the work record. So once we insert the service request, we hit select, and it'll the service request history will come down in the bottom table down below. So now we've clicked on from the drop down box, we moved on to the unresolved service requests. So if we want to resolve one of the service requests, we fill in the details and we hit the button update service request in the table below, and the service request will be updated. So now we're on to the insert work record from the drop down box again. If we want to insert a work record, we type the work record in, which details are completed on the work record. We then hit the update work record button up here, and the work record is updated, or it can be passed on to the service history if completed. We can also check for the inventory update by navigating onto the inventory tab. So next we move on to the technician input service request from the drop down box again. To input a service request, we type it into the necessary fields and we hit the input service request button, and the details come in the table below again. So now we move on to the manager login. Similarly again, you need to type your username and your password, and once you log in, you can view the unresolved requests or the history of all the work. So we click the unresolved requests or the history, and it'll move us on to the new page. So we can navigate here by using, again, with the drop down box, we have the service request history and the unresolved service requests page. So we can type in the unresolved service request or the service request history, look up one of the details of it, hit select, and it will appear in the table below. So then we move on to the unresolved service requests, and we'll move on to here again. And if you want to update the unresolved service request similar to the other pages, you type it into the table below, hit the update service request, and the service request will be updated.